Okay. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to Online SIPS 2025. Lovely to see new faces, old faces, and I hope you've already had a chance to make it to some of the great sessions that we've had today. And so I thought I'd take this short amount of time to talk a little bit about why does SIPS matter to me? Why is it an organization that I've continued to be involved in for several years now? And this is kind of for a variety of reasons. I've made lots of really great friends through SIPS, colleagues. I think it's really being a part of SIPS has really shaped my career trajectory to date. But I'll give you a kind of snapshot of how it all started. So I'm not a SIPS person from the very beginning. My first SIPS was SIPS 2019, which I think actually might be the case for a lot of people because it was actually the largest in-person SIPS that we've had to date. And I met lots of people that I now collaborate with there for the first time. And so I'd heard a bit about SIPS. I was at this time I was a PhD student in developmental psychology, and I was very involved in kind of open science, and we had a great open science working group at the university that I was a part of. But it was still kind of a relatively like small amount of people who at my institution were like had a geek level interest in open science and improving psychology. And so I remember just turning up in Rotterdam and just being absolutely gobsmacked that there were so many hundreds of people there with me who were interested in the same things and so knowledgeable about a variety of different topics about open science, science reform, improving psychology from different angles, and it was just I was in my happy place, surrounded by so many like-minded people. And I mean, I remember there were people that I met there for example, in one of the sessions I met Umul Kiran Pathawala, who was also a graduate student at the time, and we got chatting about how she was interested in creating a guide on easing into open science for students, and we had only met there for the first time, and then after that ended up collaborating on that, which is one of my like proudest outputs to date, and has hopefully helped a lot of people ease into open science over the years. Yeah, lots of other great and useful interactions happened there. But one of the things that I was disappointed with then in 2019 was that we were talking about improving psychological science, and yet on the program there didn't seem to be any programming related to diversity that year. And it was something that I was a bit disappointed about, and I got chatting to someone else who felt the same, Claire Connery Murray. But then because of the beauty of SIPS is that it's so kind of bottom up and you can do whatever you want with it, then we just submitted an on-the-fly session to talk about diversity at SIPS and what that might mean for the future of the society. And it ended up being really well attended, including from members of the executive committee. And it was a really scary thing to do, to be leading this session as a PhD student, and I kind of felt like, why should anyone be listening to anything that I have to say? But people were so like non-hierarchical, really took the advice on board. And I mean, now you'll see that diversity and related topics are a huge part of what SIPS has become, and it's great to see how kind of how that change was made possible. I did participate in SIPS after that online for several years, including in 2022. And in this year was particularly interesting to note because in the introduction channel for the online in the Slack for the conference, I just introduced myself as normal. And noticed that someone else had introduced themselves in the chat just before me that happened to be in the same city as me, which was like a really crazy coincidence because, we're a global conference. And so we decided that it was too much of a coincidence, so we had to meet for coffee while we were both attending the online conference. And so that's what we did. And then, so this was at SIPS 2022. And then funnily enough, in about 3 months from now, I'm going to be marrying them. So that's very a big success story from SIPS, I think. I did get chatting to someone at last year's conference that had also met their partner at SIPS. So I don't know if we could do a special Valentine's Day SIPS post at some point highlighting all the SIPS romances that we've had. And that brings me to now. You know, after attending several iterations of SIPS, I had eventually ran to be on the executive committee and got a position, which meant that I was able to kind of see a bit more behind the scenes of how SIPS is run. And so I thought I might share a few of those insights with you today. And the main one is that improving psychological science is hard. And I think, like, we all know this, but it's sometimes, I think, at least at the beginning, when I was first there in Rotterdam, it felt like there was so much more that kind of united us than divided us, which is still definitely true, but it felt like we were like maybe the solutions were easy, and I wasn't super critical of like different ways that we could improve psychological science. I just kind of thought we're all doing it together. But since being on the executive committee, I've definitely realized that you know, even if we share the same values, you know, SIPS's values of improving psychological science and advancing diversity and improving the way that we do research, we have definitely very different ideas of how the best way to do this, and that's normal and should be embraced. And some past SIPS presidents put this a lot better than I could, so I'm going to take advantage of the open access nature of their speeches from previous years that I found online and highlight some of the bits that I thought are really important. So from Sanjay in 2019, he said, "As we have grown and will continue to grow, we need to be asking, what do we do about differences? Both the differences that already exist in our organization and the differences that could be represented here but aren't yet. Differences can be our strength, but that won't happen automatically. It will take deliberation, intent, and work to make them an asset." And I think this is exactly what SIPS did. It did take deliberation, intent, and work to make these differences an asset, and we can see that reflected in the programming each year, that we have a huge diversity of perspectives and locations represented in the sessions that we run. And Crystal, a couple of years later, also said, "First, we focused on easier problems. But as our organization develops, I see more people asking big questions. In addition to doing the necessary groundwork around open science practices, we are asking bigger questions about inclusion, about belonging, about justice. We are asking what our system does and what it should be doing instead." And I think that sums it up really well. Some of the things that I was mentioning about, you know, as the questions get more complicated, we are going to have more differing perspectives on them. And so I wanted to just highlight a few of these questions with you today. So one is, should SIPS put more effort into serving its existing members or into diversifying membership? I think when we're making a lot of our decisions about things like how to organize our conferences, where to have our conferences, one perspective could be to serve our existing members, but then that kind of is ignoring the fact that there are all these potential members that we have out there that we also could be trying to get involved with SIPS. We don't want to kind of become an echo chamber and not be expanding beyond our existing membership. Should SIPS continue to offer online and in-person conferences or focus on just one? We had a great conversation about this in the Future of SIPS session earlier today. You know, there's really a wide range of perspectives on this and the best direction that we can take. Which SIPS initiatives are the most valuable, and how can we ensure that we continue to offer these? I think SIPS is often trying out different initiatives, different ways to kind of engage with our community outside of the conference, and it would be great to know which of these are most valuable to our members. What should SIPS's relationship be with scientific publishing? I know this is one that we have talked about in some of the previous years' Future of SIPS sessions. So people within the SIPS community have very different perspectives on what the kind of best direction for publishing is. Is it sticking to a journal model, but you know, advancing open access within those models, and working with you know, not-for-profit publishers like we do with Collabora? Or is it that we move completely away from journals altogether and embrace something like PCI psychology, which you know, has been what was one of the organizing meetings to found PCI psychology was organized as a SIPS pop-up session, and now the journal is you know, starting off, and it's a really exciting not journal, the initiative is starting off, and is a really exciting time for it. So is that something that SIPS should be putting more energy into, relative compared to into a journal? Yeah, should we be doing more with, SIPS runs SciArchive, should we be making that more more obvious? Should we be doing more with that? So lots of directions that we could be taking things in. And should SIPS aim to grow, or should size not matter? So like I said, Rotterdam was the largest in-person SIPS that we've had so far, but larger doesn't necessarily mean better. There's a lot of important work that can be done in smaller groups, and should we just be aiming to continuously expand, or is there a kind of or should we kind of be putting more effort into doing more with smaller conferences, for example? And so to answer these difficult questions, we need you. So there's lots of ways that you can get involved and share your perspectives on the direction that SIPS should take. So one is, like I mentioned, we had a Future of SIPS session earlier today, and we have another one at the in-person portion in Budapest. So you can feel free to come along to that and share your thoughts. We also have several committees that you can look into joining, ranging from our publication committee to our inclusion, diversity, equity and access committee, and our conference programming and logistics committees. And also, if you have any feedback to share more generally, you can always email us. And yeah, we would love to hear your thoughts, because we want to best serve you, our members. So with that, I'd just like to say thank you to you for listening and attending the conference. Thank you to our amazing organizers from the Programming and Logistics Committee, Katya and Balazs leading those, along with Julia and Katie, our executive officers. And yeah, so thank you so much for all the hard work that you have all put into organizing both iterations of the conference. And I hope everyone has a really great SIPS 2025. Thank you.